the Indian rupee, there's been a lot of push from the RBI and the government for the rupee to be, the next dollar, if I may, eventually in the future, to make rupee the form of currency for trade across the world, especially as far as all Indian trade is concerned. That's been the push. A lot of efforts have been taken. Some deals have been struck with, say, Russia and a couple of other countries where the trade deal is struck in rupee terms and not in dollar terms as well. But talk to us about the latest push from the RBI for the rupee.
So, Krishna, what happened about a week ago, 10 days ago, was India's first trade settlement in INR with UAE. Prior to that, there was this one small instance of some customs border settlement with Bangladesh, our neighbor, also done in INR instead of USD. But you spoke about Russia. India has been for the last almost a year plus trying tooth and nail to settle and circumvent the sanctions and route some sort of trade settlement for all the oil we've imported from Russia in INR, and that has not happened. Now,
and we are the single largest
importer of Russian oil. Right, and this is something that we are processing. The Russian oil is being processed in India, adding value to the Russian oil and exporting it even to the European markets, much to the ire of many of the Western partners who support the sanctions, perhaps rightly so. Now, the point being that India has not been able to have any headway, any breakthrough in settling the trade deal with Russia in INR. Instead, because the dollar bills are just as insignificant as pieces of paper for Russia, India has in fact started settling trade bills in yuan, which is bad news for the Indian national rupee, but good news for the Chinese yuan, which incidentally has been the most devalued currency in the Asian pack, but we'll come to that later. Now, the fact being that with UAE, what the RBI right now is doing, it's giving these little nudges, these little pushes to Indian banks, local banks, saying that, hey, you tell your clients who are trading with UAE to settle trade not in USD, but either in AED, which is the dirham, or the Indian national rupee, INR. And if you are able to convince your clients to have these settlements in local currencies, it means that India's need to buy dollars to settle trade bills reduces. India already has $600 billion worth of US dollars stashed away in the coffers of the RBI. And that pretty much is enough to meet any BOP crisis that may emerge, unlikely scenario, or any sort of stabilization of the Indian rupee if it were to get devalued at any stage. But India is saying that RBI is saying that we want to push for INR settlement or local currency settlement. The idea is as much about pushing the Indian rupee in global trade as it is about reducing the dependence on the US dollar. So, India is saying that countries with which India has got a large trade deficit, UAE being one of them because of the oil block and because of the oil import from UAE, India is saying that either AED or INR is something that we would prefer trade settlement in. It reduces our dependence on the dollar. We are buying lesser dollars. It means the dollar price against the rupee does not shoot very high, and more transactions on rupee would mean that more foreign players, foreign countries are buying the Indian rupee, valuing it higher.
And that pushes the rupee out into the open market. As much more trade happens in the Indian rupee. That's what we want. Quickly, Kartik, fascinating what we're trying to do with the rupee. Lot left to be seen how it's, to start with, let's start doing rupee deals with Russia. Let that come through and then we can,
But then, directly doing rupee deals with Russia is going to become a sanctioned action.
True.
Which becomes the problem. So, some sort of a circumvention of, which is where Vostro accounts become very relevant. Now, RBI last year had also initiated Vostro accounts, which are accounts opened by foreign institutions through their banking partners with Indian accounts, where they park money in the Indian account for future dealings with other clients, other partners within Indian borders using the INR. So, you do a trade deal with, let's say, country X, and country X, instead of settling that trade in USD, settles it in INR, but parks that INR, does not repatriate that INR, keeps it in an Indian bank for any future payments that need to be made in India. But even the Vostro accounts have not yet taken off.
All right, Vostro accounts also have not taken off. But we are bullish on pushing the rupee. The RBI is.